During the fall of 1986, when Kenneth Lee was studying late one night in his college dorm, he received a call from his father, himself a combat-wounded Vietnam War veteran who fought for the Army of the Republic of Korea. He asked him who was paying for his college since he never had written a check to the school. Dr. Lee told him that he was receiving scholarship and government grants. His father then told him not to mooch off the government and to pay back the funding as soon as possible. So Dr. Lee decided to start serving his country. He joined the Illinois Army National Guard 131st Infantry Battalion in April of 1986 during his second year of college. At that time, the Army motto was, "Be all that you can be." Dr. Lee took this motto to be his personal drive to serve his country. Excelling even from the start of basic training with the Soldier of the Cycle Award and the Top Soldier Award at Combat Medic Training, Dr. Lee maintained a high standard for himself to serve others. His military career took him to all parts of the world, from jungle survival training with the Marines in the Philippines to desert combat training in the Mojave Desert and numerous humanitarian missions in Nicaragua. Dr. Lee's exemplary military career includes numerous awards from recruiting, performance, and leadership. On November 3, 2003, Colonel Lee was deployed to Iraq as the commander of Company B, 118th Medical Battalion in support of the war on terrorism. During deployment, he applied the motto of "Be all you can be" and learned every aspect of combat to go along with his medical training. While carrying out their medical missions, Dr. Lee's unit also assisted combat arms units on convoys and transport. On September 12, 2004, his convoy was ambushed by a suicide car bomber, and he was severely injured during the attack. He was medevaced out and immediately went from providing care for combat wounded soldiers to becoming one himself. Due to the severity of his injuries from shrapnel, nerve and joint damage, and traumatic brain injury, Dr. Lee was not able to return to the theater. He received the Purple Heart Medal as a result of his wounds suffered in this attack. After a long and painful rehabilitation, he returned home and was able to continue to serve in the military as the state surgeon of the Wisconsin Army National Guard for 7 years. During that time, he was a key leader in keeping the state of combat readiness above 98% for the 7,200 soldiers of the Wisconsin Army National Guard. He received the coveted Legion of Merit Medal for 27 years of military service and the positive impact he had made on the Army National Guard and our country. On the home front, Dr. Lee struggled with his physical injuries, chronic pain, traumatic brain injury, and severe post-traumatic stress disorder for 2 years. His 5-year-old son, Jonathan, was afraid of him, and he was disconnected from his wife, Kate. Finally, his then 8-year-old daughter, Leah, spoke out and said, "Dad, you don't smile anymore." Dr. Lee realized that he was on a path of destruction and taking his family down with him. Dr. Lee remembered the motto that had always guided him, "Be all you can be." Getting motivation from his family and eventually from his patients, the veterans who he was serving, Dr. Lee started utilizing sports to recover himself. He began running 5 miles per day and cycling back and forth to and from work. This revitalized him and helped him get out of the slump of PTSD while concentrating on creating a better life for himself and his family. This is when he realized that our disabled veterans could also benefit from sports, and he became instrumental in developing adaptive sports for veterans.
At one point in our lives, we raced against each other, we threw a ball, we crossed the stick with each other, we tried to jump higher than others. Competitiveness and also sports is part of our nature, our human nature. It's also in our DNA. Right? So why don't we use sports as a means to do rehabilitation and bring back our disabled veterans back into the community? Sports can be utilized for our veterans in order to get them out of their rut, per se, and utilize it for them to get out of their predicament that they're in as a disabled veteran and become a productive member of our society.
Dr. Lee attributes the success of his adapted sports program to the assistance of recreation therapists, other national VA programs, and most importantly, his fellow veterans. Many disabled veterans have utilized Dr. Lee's program and found a way to climb out of their predicament. One such veteran is Eric, a former Army Ranger and paralyzed veteran.
the things I learned were it was a double-edged sword. I got to rely on the sense of camaraderie and the sense of family and the sense of purpose that the military gave you. And then when I got hurt, I couldn't really find those things in the civilian world, and it's kind of not like I really had a choice of not having those things. It's not like I just said, well, my enlistment's up and I'm done. It was, you're medically separated from the military now, and it was kind of the beginning of my undoing for a while. I really didn't want to take part in the civilian world, and really wasn't enjoying my predicament. So, like, I started cycling with the Badgerland Adaptive Cycling Club here at the spinal cord unit at the Milwaukee VA. It was just, they encourage cycling from just a recreational standpoint, but they'll also help you if you want to take it into a competitive standpoint, and this VA and Dr. Lee and the spinal cord unit there has really pushed. They were like, if you want to race and you prove that you want to race, we will go the full 9 yards on getting you a competitive hand cycle and getting you what you need to get started in racing. So yeah, it just started out recreationally and kind of grew from there. I like triathlon the most. I do para-class triathlon, so it's a swimming, hand cycling, and racing wheelchair for the run. And then I play wheelchair lacrosse also. I have kind of a three-pronged support network in my recovery, and one of those prongs is adaptive sports. I use a 12-step program, and family and friends is another prong, but adaptive sports is probably the biggest one for me. It's encouraging me to change my lifestyle. I have this group of friends that I see at almost every race, and I sometimes train with them, and it just starts to become that camaraderie and that sense of family and that sense of purpose that was missing from my life for so long. I think he's realized that sporting events has not only given me a physical purpose, and it keeps me physically healthy, but it's given me an emotional and spiritual purpose where it keeps me driven, and it's my new addiction. It's what I do, and I'm actually pretty decent at it. I'm not the best yet, but I'm getting there. And I couldn't have done it without encouragement from Dr. Lee from the beginning.
Utilizing Dr. Lee's adaptive sports program, Eric is now captain of the wheelchair lacrosse team, is a national para-triathlete, and is shooting for the Paralympic Games in Japan. Dr. Lee is the chief of the Spinal Cord Injury Center at the Zablocki VA Medical Center in Milwaukee. He was intimately involved in the design and construction of the Spinal Cord Injury Center. Dr. Lee also was instrumental in the development of special programs such as the Badgerland Veterans Adaptive Sports Club, and created partnership between veterans and VA with the community. His devotion to utilizing adaptive sports has connected with many veteran service organizations such as AMVETS, Paralyzed Veterans of America, Disabled American Veterans, and the Military Order of the Purple Heart to provide the best services for our veterans with disability. He also spearheaded the Milwaukee VA hosting the National Veterans Wheelchair Games in 2007.
Dr. Lee's leadership and foresight were the major forces we needed to host the National Veterans Wheelchair Games in Milwaukee in 2007. The Games are the largest annually occurring wheelchair sports event in the world. The events require a lot of planning and preparation. It's a huge undertaking, and he convinced us we could do it. And without that motivation, that persuasion, convincing the whole VA that we could host this event, I'm sure it never would have happened. And not only did we host it, but we did it with style. The veterans still talk about those games in Milwaukee, and it's really kind of a metaphor for the way Dr. Lee operates, that when you have challenges in life, you don't run away from them, you take them on, and we all grow from taking on challenges.
Dr. Lee was instrumental in formally starting education programs for future doctors utilizing adaptive sports. He has trained hundreds of medical students, residents, and fellows in adaptive sports medicine.
Dr. Lee is passionate about promoting physical activity in those with disabilities, not only for our veterans, but also for the greater community at large. Dr. Lee has led our community program called Everybody Plays, Adaptive Sports and Recreation Expo. This community-wide activity showcased 40 community programs highlighting adaptive programs that members in the community, children, family, and veterans could participate in. In addition, he has utilized his leadership skills to organize the Wisconsin Adaptive Sports Association. This program highlights and brings together individuals with disabilities and veterans with other board members of the Wisconsin Adaptive Sports Association. He manages Greater Milwaukee teams including wheelchair lacrosse, sled hockey, quad rugby, wheelchair tennis, wheelchair softball, and 5 wheelchair basketball teams. And they will be starting a new program called Goalball. With this enthusiasm, he has allowed the veterans to also be the best they can be by serving as peers and mentors to others in the community with disabilities. Without a doubt, he has carried forward the opportunities to engage in physical activity to the highest level, impacting our veterans and community members.
What else do I do? I've done biathlon, skiing and shooting, like cross-country skiing and shooting, lacrosse. So, I mean, that's what interests me, is that it's new. Like, and I played team sports growing up and whatnot, contact team sports, and this is like a contact team sport that I can play in a wheelchair. So I'm like, this is awesome. Triathlon, biking, swimming, race chair, I've done a marathon. I mean, anything that's really going on that sounds like fun. I just like to move. It teaches me to be stronger, you know? Like now I go to school. Last week I did a photo shoot. So, I mean, I go to school and I do that, but I wouldn't have done that without the confidence that adaptive sports has brought me. A lot of people focus on like what they can't do, you know? Like, oh, okay, I can't walk, I can't do this, I can't take my garbage out, I can't do this, but this is something that you can do. There's a whole bunch of different aspects to it. You know, I like to be active, so anything that really keeps me active, really keeps me like headed in the right direction.
One veteran's mother said, "If it wasn't for you, Dr. Lee, and this wonderful sports program, I would not be here watching him play. I would be visiting him in his gravesite. Thank you." Dr. Lee's tireless effort to make smooth transition from battlefront to home front is about going through the struggle together, accomplishing it together, and most importantly, being true to the motto that has guided him: be all you can be.